As I'll let the brad find its own center by lightly pushing the bit against the blank. Once it centers out, I'll lock down the tailstock and continue drilling, slowly. When both flutes start to cut, I'll feed a little bit faster but still drill slowly. I advance the quill only about 3 turns of the wheel, then back the tailstock out, crank the quill back to its starting point, and check to see how hot the bit gets. If I can't hold my hand on the bit comfortably, I'll cool it down with a damp rag. Then slide the tailstock up until the bit bottoms out on the blank, lock it down, and continue drilling, 3 turns at a time, cooling the bit, and repeat until it's drilled through. When the brad sticks through the end of the blank, I will slow my feet way down, almost painfully slow, until the bit completely exits the blank. You can see it easily here as I hold a white rag on the opposite side of the chuck. They say not to use the brad point bits on acrylics, but I've never had an issue when taking my time and keeping the bit cool. By feeding very slowly at the end, I avoid breakouts. Using this method of centering and drilling, I get good clean holes through the blank and at the ends. When my tubes are not already roughed up, I do it myself by mounting the tubes on my mandrel and sanding with 220 or coarser grit, whatever I have handy. My mandrel is a 7mm, and I use the mandrel saver center at the tailstock. It is the number 1 Morse taper mandrel, so to keep from buying another one for my number 2 Morse taper lathe, I bought 2 number 1 to number 2 Morse taper adapter sleeves to use with it. When I trim the ends of the blanks, I'll make sure the sleeve slides into the tubes easily. I usually have to scrape a little excess CA glue from inside of one end. I slide the blank over the sleeve of the trimmer, clamp the chuck on it, then lock the tailstock down just short of the end of the blank. At slowest speed, I feed the trimmer in slowly until the ends of the tube are squared. Once squared, I mount the blanks on my mandrel with the appropriate bushings and spacers. The quill is snugged up just enough for friction to keep them from slipping while turning. I turn at high speed and use light cuts. Don't rush it. I only have high-speed steel chisels and they have to be kept sharp. I usually start with a roughing gouge, but mostly use a spindle gouge. I like to get silly string coming off my acrylic and plastic blanks once rounded, but it doesn't happen all the time. When getting down to the final turned diameter, I will use a round nose scraper to help even out the surface before sanding. I will start out sanding using 220 grit wet or dry paper, always wet sanding. I also back it with a paint stirring stick to make sure I'm sanding the blanks flat and to get rid of waves and other irregularities on the surface. Next, I wet sand with 800 grit by hand. From here on, with no backing stick, I clean and re-wet the paper frequently, checking the blanks as I go. From here, I will wet sand with my micromesh pads, working my way from 3200 through 12,000 grit. I sand them lightly, 2 or 3 repetitions with each grit on each piece, cleaning and re-wetting the pads between each repetition. I also check my progress after each grit. This time I'm using Meguiar's plastic polish. I will lightly buff it out with a soft cloth or paper towel. Sometimes I leave the blank as is, without a polish of any kind. This is the Premium Classic Fountain Pen Kit, number PKPAR-FCGP2 from Wood Turnings or Penn State Industries. My lighting wasn't the best here, but it has gold trim and a screw cap that will also screw onto post.